Hello everyone, greetings from New York. I hope you're all staying happy and healthy during this very weird time. Happy anniversary to the Sad Iron Gas Engine Show. I do not have an engine that I can run to make a lot of noise, but what I thought I could show you was our very noisy neighbors. So at this time every day, 7 o'clock, New York celebrates healthcare workers, and hopefully you can hear it outside.
Welcome to Sad Iron 2020. In case you hadn't noticed, you can't be here with us this year.
This would have been our 14th annual show, but due to COVID-19, we've had to cancel it.
All this started from a surprise birthday party that we were holding for Brian. And the only way we could do that without him knowing it was to do it a month and a half early, which actually worked out best between shows anyway.
6 months later, we started getting calls asking when the show would be next year, and Sad Iron was born.
Sad Iron wouldn't be what it is today without all of you, especially those that have traveled long distances, helped with food, helped with preparation, helped with cleanup, and the list goes on and on. Thank you ever so much.
Follow us inside. Let's run some engines virtually.
Mom?
This is our Crosley engine of 1888. We purchased it a couple of years ago at an online auction while we were at Cool Springs. It was shipped from the factory in 1888, December 31st, to Leeds, and it worked for about 10 to 15 years as a gas engine, and around 1900 it was converted to an oil engine by Wheatley's, and it worked again, and then around the late 50s, early 60s it was retrieved and restored and rallied at the rally fields in England. Around 88 it was sold, 82 it was sold and eventually found its way to the Big Bent Museum in Sweden, and we purchased it. We got a hold of it February of last year, and the cylinder had a 95 thou taper to it, so we had it power home to straighten that out. Of course the piston's too small now, so we put a sleeve on the piston to build it up, new rings, and we were going to try to convert it back to a gas engine like it was originally, but nobody seems to know if it was a late slide valve or an early time hot tube. So we bit the bullet and put it back to the way we got it, and it's going to run as an oil engine for us today.
If it's got the right,
If
if it's in the right mood.
right mood.
Okay, help me through.
Yep.
You got the decompression on stuff? out there?
We like wallpaper, or as we call it, wallpaper, but signs, porcelain, pictures, things that are semi-related to our hobby. When we first went to Noonan, we bought several posters from case fitters, and you'll see them here. And as time went on, we bought more posters. The Europeans seem to have spent more time in their advertising posters than they did in North America. So it's quite nice. It's interesting. Covers up the knotholes. We have this Celsius thermometer here for our American friends because it is the only country in the world that is still Fahrenheit. Back behind here is a steam clock in Vancouver, and our friends from Germany got to see that in person a couple of years ago, and we saw it last year when we did the Rocky Mountaineer train ride through the Rockies. A fellow collector from Texas, Clyde Crouch, was telling me about his steam gauge that was lit up, and I'd never heard of one before. And long story short, I come home, and a month later we were into a local antique shop, and I found that. There was no lights in it then, but they were just burnt out. The slow children sign we got out of the States. Apparently, we tease our American friends that we didn't have any slow children in Canada. They were all smart. I put the stained glass on the window because when you took pictures inside here, the bright sun coming through always messed up the photographs. So that kind of helped out a wee bit. More signs, steam gauges. The cast iron sign down below here is off the E. Leonard and Sons factory in London, Canada. I bought that just because of a bit of a whim at the time, but it's cast iron. But my great-grandfather had a Leonard portable steam engine. And we have a picture of it in the shop. I don't know if Audrey can get a picture of this, but you notice how perfect the artwork is on this. The little cherub oiling the engine. We don't see things like that in North America.
Ooh,
This one's out of France.
the lights are reflecting badly.
Okay.
There we go.
Anyway, move on.
We also have a couple girls that watch over the place when we're not here. This is Rochelle.
Our dear friends in Germany, when they realized that I had quite a passion for engines, they went on our webpage, and I guess it was this way. And Antonia's dad, Audry, worked at a place that makes laser etchings and things like that, and he used a laser cutter to cut out the, he sent me two of them. One's frosted and one's mirror finish. Pretty unique. We have another thermometer here that is strictly Fahrenheit for our American friends.
And this is Marilyn. She keeps Rochelle company when we're not around.
Heinrich Lantz made steam engines before they made the Bulldog tractor.
See?
Yes, I see. Audrey always wanted a barber shop post. So I happened to find one at a local antique shop that wasn't working, and brought it home and managed to get it to work, and then apparently you can still buy all the stuff for it. So I got a new candy cane for it.
This is Brian's brother Gary. He passed away with ALS about 10 years ago, I guess now. And his favorite river was the Peace River that ran through British Columbia. He lived in British Columbia. It's kind of our memory wall. The bucking horse was a holiday trip that Connie and Phil had with us, and we had a wonderful time. A lot of laughs over that bucking horse. And then in thinking about Phil, he won his election this year, and we're very proud of him.
Last year at Noonan, we happened to win the Crosley sign. We've been buying tickets every time we go, and we've never won anything. And this last year we won a Crosley sign and something else. I forget what the other thing was. Do you remember?
I think a sweater.
Another European sign we probably bought from Case.
The London Transit sign is memories from when I lived in England. This is Brian's favorite sign. It's engraved out motored cars that were sold in Kippen, Ontario, just down the road about 2 miles. This is a sign I found for Brian because it's not always his forte to keep everything clean. But now we have a sign to tell him. The German sign. I found this Capitan sign last year when I was in Nova Scotia, and it reminded me of my friends who has a Capitan in France. Francois. Brian hooked these fans up, and we run them every time we're out here. Just adds another little feature to our collection. I'm a quilter, so it would only be right that we should have some cloth signs. This is Buttrick Patterns, and this was the needle art room. And I'm not sure where we got this, but it's in French. And of course, Bell Telephone, after our Canadian, Alexander Graham Bell.
And of course, we had to miss our Grosswich show this year when Thomas and Holger were here a few years ago. They left us with a poster from, I believe, the next year's show. And we had some good times there, and we had one good time at Groswich, and we were all excited about going back this year, and unfortunately the virus messed it all up.
But that's the end of our wallpaper.
This is a White and Middleton made in Baltimore, Maryland. We got this from a past collector, Harry Fraser. He purchased it from, lost it, doesn't matter. This guy had bought the engine from Bell Telephone in Hamilton in 1967. And when he went to pick up the engine, it was gone. The whole building site was gone. So he called up Bell Telephone and said, "What happened? Where's my engine?" And they said, "Well, you were supposed to pick it up, sorry for your luck." So he said, "Well, who did the salvage work? Who took the building down? Who cleared inside up?" And so he called them up and said, "Where's my engine? Never seen an engine, sorry for your luck." So he wouldn't leave it at that, so he drove around. This is back in the day when you could go to salvage yards and see stuff, and he went into the office and asked again about the engine, and they said never saw an engine. And so as he was leaving the building, he thought he'd just take a walk around, and he just went around behind the building, and just in time to watch a guy, one of the workers, break the bottom half of the main bearing to get the brass out of it. So he got them stopped and said, "This is my engine, do-rot and SOBs," and so he got the engine, brought it home. He got the dynamo with it, but they pulled all the coils out of it because they were looking for the copper and the cast iron. And anyway, after many years, he sold it to Harry, and Harry took it home. Harry took all the good stuff, put it inside, left the flywheels and the base outside. He said I should buy it, so I was thinking, maybe not, maybe. Anyway, he talked me into buying it, so I brought it home, put it in the barn, put everything inside so it wouldn't get any worse for wear, oiled it down, and it sat there for a few years. And one year, I think Audrey and I had just come home late one night from curling, and there was all kinds of tractor marks in the yard, and I thought, what has been going on here? So I went to the shop, and of course Jonathan had went to the barn, dragged all the stuff for this engine and put it in the shed, because that was the year that Cool Spring was featuring White and Middleton engines. And we were just going to the field to put in 1,300 acres of crop, and I said, we cannot do this. But he prevailed and I helped, and we had it running about a week before Cool Springs. And when we got to Cool Springs, the son of Arthur Middleton, Ed, was at the show. And we got to meet him, got a picture of him with the engine and us, and it was quite a
Was it worth it?
quite a treat, yeah. And it's always been a mainstay. It's our go-to engine whenever somebody comes to visit. This is about the first one we fire up, because it's such a nice smooth running. It's got electric flywheels, and it just coasts forever. So, Sonny, light her up.
Oh,
Maybe a battery would work.
nice job, Nate.
No problem.
In 2018, we had a young lady here from Germany, Antonia Zink, and when she saw Brian's passions for engines, she had her dad make this little engine to hang over the master. So thank you, Antoine.
This engine is a Model 2 Klein 8x12 model, which is about 12 horsepower. Serial number 220, which dates it somewhere in the mid to late 1890s. This engine ran the Bloomfield pumping station out of Bloomfield, Ohio. Thank you, Chris Austin. Also, thank you for the mechanical lubricator that looks fantastic, that I know you were a big part of getting done. We've owned this engine since Dad traded it from Red Buchanan back in the early 90s, I believe. And we're gonna see if she wants to run. Ready? Run, guys.
Hello, this is a video we're going to take for the Trebner's virtual 2020 Sad Iron Engine Show. As you know, unfortunately we can't make it, so going to participate as a New York remote attendee of the event. Glad to participate here. This is a 1909 auto made in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Was originally installed in a country club in Delaware where it powered a generator. It was belt driven off the flywheel and was coupled to a panel very similar to what you see behind me. The engine's original, it's never been restored. The fourth owner of the engine, I've possessed it for about 25 years. I'm going to start it up. First thing, prime the gasoline fuel system. It's already oiled and we'll give it a try. Uncouple the fuel pump, activate it. I can see fuel in the overflow. re-engage the pump. And make sure the governor's set, which it is. Alright, let's give it a try.
Okay.
This is a Hornsby Stockport. We have a traveling buddy and a coffee drinking buddy that like to travel around with us to auction sales, and never had a desire to have an engine, but we were at an auction sale a few years ago and he got to nod in his head and didn't have an American check and didn't have a whole lot of things, but I covered for him and he brought this engine home, and we have sort of put it on long-term loan for him because he didn't want to put it at his place. And it's a pretty good little engine. Starts for us pretty handily most times. Most times. Except when you fly.
Hi, it's Rick and Marilyn. Sorry we can't make it to the show this year. We really appreciate everything that you do for us, and we'll see you in 2021.
We'll see ya.
No meat?
Oh, where's the meat?
This is our 25 horse Fairbanks N. It came from Cleveland, Ohio. We bought it from Bill Hatchell. Bill was an early collector in Ohio, collected a lot of Ohio-made engines. This isn't Ohio-made, but he moved factories for a living. So he had some pretty massive equipment around to move things. So he was on a little boat ride, a cruise on the Cuyahoga River, which was famous in Cleveland because it used to take fire quite frequently back in the 70s with all the pollution. And he was on a cruise and he looked up and saw, when he was going underneath a railroad bridge, he could see flywheels in a little hut that lifted. This engine actually ran a jackknife bridge which lifted a double track up so the boats could go through. And there was a 650-ton counterbalance. Anyway, long story short, he was at a charity function and he got sitting at the table of the CEO of the now defunct, or of the company that took over the Erie-Lackawanna Railroad. And he was telling him about this engine and this bridge and would it be for sale and blah, blah, blah. So I guess they struck up a deal, and because he had all this fancy equipment with like rubber tired tracks on things, so he could go down the tracks and winches and cables to lift this engine up and sling it down to the riverbed and put it on trucks. And anyway, he did a lot of legwork to get the engine home, and he was going to give it to a friend, and the friend wasn't too interested in it, so he eventually said it was for sale, so he sold it to me and we brought it home. And of course all the brass was missing, so I had to find a carburetor, an igniter, oilers, some caps got lost, oil caps got lost in the transition. Anyway, we got it here and it runs quite nicely, and it's we've taken it to some of the local shows, but it's a big chunk of iron. It's not really fun to move around, so it seems to have a pretty nice spot here in the corner.
Good morning. We're trying to beat the weather for the sad iron show that we can't do. We're doing it on video. My name is Wib Meyer. We've got a little Bruner here with a reasonably early patent date. It has donut flywheels, 5-spoke, unmachined. The kind of a unique gas tank pulley is integrated into the flywheel all in one piece. And I'm going to pass this now to my wife, Lois, and I'm going to start it for you guys. Around and catch everything in there.
This is our Char and Gross made in Nuremberg, Germany. It was exported to Argentina around 1910. Sold by Adelpho Mantels and Company. Was originally fueled by producer gas. The governor system is a little different than the one in Germany. It was imported or exported out of Argentina to North America by a collector who had in New York who had a brother that was a picker in Argentina, and it was sold and never restored. And about 10 years ago, it was put on eBay, and we were lucky enough to buy it. Brought it home, and that spring at our annual show, we featured it and ran this engine. With any luck, it'll probably start, or not. By the way, we affectionately call this engine Fraulein.
Hey everyone, this is Emily in Kingston. We're sorry we can't make it for obvious reasons, but we hope everyone is staying safe and staying healthy, and we look forward to seeing you in 2021. Bye!
I've been kind of watching for little ones out there. I haven't seen any yet, but I see how they respond. I'm pretty sure it'll be all right.
Hi there, guys. This is Blair and Bruce Goss. We're glad to be out and enjoying the sun today, and we're missing the Sad Iron show, but at least we've got some sun. And I know John would have been looking forward to being there this year, but we don't have John with us anymore, and so we know that he always enjoyed coming to the show to be around guys and be able to visit. This is what Dad and I have been working on this winter and for a few winters now, but this is a George McLaughlin built by Western Machine Company in Toronto. It's got a few differences on it. It's got the pie-shaped weights in the flywheels, side shaft on the right-hand side instead of on the left. Obviously the old steam governor set up on it, and nice Christmas tree oilers. We'll give it a shot here and see if we can start it and give it a little run. Here's a picture of what we found in some old literature. This was the sister company McLaughlin in Swansea, Toronto, made this one, and obviously this little one is very similar. Probably about a 2-horse. So let's see if we can give it a start. There we go.
This is my son's idea. It's a terrible idea. It's hot. The first time it's been hot in a month. But he thinks we should start this because we always run it at the show. But we usually run 4 people on it. So we'll see what happens. Okay, Larry.
All right, I surrender. Flip the lever one more time. Okay, you win. Bad idea. Oh, yeah!
They're gonna have a good one.
Okay, all decompression for two
manpower. This way.
Hold it for one more. Now. Come on. Why don't you move it to light load?
I don't think you need the bubble.
He's missing, Brian.
This is Steve Helmer for the 2020 Sad Iron Engine Show. Unfortunately, we couldn't be together this year due to circumstances. Hopefully next year. Here we have running a 1915 Field engine made by the Field and Brundage Company. 8 horsepower.
Oh, I'm in.
This is a 6-horse Ohio. We got this from Pat Wilcox from the late John Wilcox, his estate, co-founder of the Cool Spring Power Museum. It's been here since I think 1911, and when I started to do some restoration, it was a nice silver paint.
We got most of the paint off, and we started, and the valve box had been ate up pretty bad, so we tried to do some welding on it. It didn't work well, not with my welding capabilities, so I assumed I was going to have to make a core box, but then I tracked down
Hayden.
Hayden in Arizona, and he had done a core box or a valve box for a 4-horse, and it turns out a 4 and a 6 are the same, basically. So he shipped me his patterns and core boxes, and I had them cast up here, and it sat under the lathe for probably 5, 6, 7 years because I was afraid of tackling it. And with this COVID thing this year, we had nothing but time on our hands, so I tackled it, and be damned if I didn't do, I think, not a bad job of it. So we put it back together in the last 2 months, 3 months, and had to do some work on the igniter. It wasn't quite up to snuff, but I think John had gathered up bits and pieces because it had been converted to a spark plug, and he has some old style igniter parts and some new style igniter parts and some 4-horse igniter parts and some bigger engine igniter parts, but we managed to play with it, and I think we can assume that it might start. Did you prime it by any chance? Well, we'll just try it without prime, see what happens. I'll get a shim.
This is my little Turk engine. We bought it at an auction sale. We weren't there because we were in Cool Springs. It's about a 1910, and that's about all I know about it. But it's my engine, and I'm proud of it.
It's kind of unique because it is a Canadian design, and most American most Canadian engines were a copy of something out of the States, but this is unique to Canada. There's about 10 or 12 of them that exist. If you want to, can you imagine this plumbing here? It's ported, and there isn't a union any place in it. It's all left and right hand elbows and nipples. And another thing, it runs backwards.
And it was built in Berlin, Ontario, which has later been called Kitchener. And it runs every time.
It's a ship. This is our 2-horse auto. I got it from Hawaii from a guy by the name of, I think, Spike Blaine. He shipped it over to a friend in Ed Rollins in Ohio, and I picked it up from there. It was missing, it's missing the carburetor still, igniter, bent crankshaft. But as luck would have it, when I got it home, there was a one sold at an auction sale down, I think in Iowa, and the Maggart brothers had bought it, and they needed a lot of monkey motion that I had, and so they offered to make me the igniter and a fuel pump for it if they could bore the parts that they needed to reproduce theirs. So we did a swap there, and everything seemed to work out fine. But I never got around to doing it. But with this year and the COVID thing, and we're all stuck at home, I started working on some old past projects. The Ohio behind me, we just started a few minutes ago, and we started working on this not that long ago, 3 weeks ago, and straightened the crankshaft and got it pretty close, within 18 thou by my measuring apparatus. So decided to go, because it was plumbed for natural gas. I decided rather than make a carburetor, I'll just fire it up on propane. So that's what we've done, and we've run it a couple times. It doesn't coast because it's misses on full compression, but it does hit and miss and hit and miss. So we will see if it'll do that again. What do you think of that?
You get your spark?
Yeah, I can smell propane. Heavy flooded. A little warmer today, so makes a different gas setting. Down almost a grade on the scale here. We're not missing it, huh?
Nope,
She's still hitting everything. Oh, you found something there.
Go.
This is a Lambert, not hit and miss, it's a Wright's inertia governor engine. John Wilcox found this on the oil fields in Indiana.
Eastern Indiana, Western Ohio, somewhere near Portland.
Anyway, he rescued it. It sat at Cool Springs in the annex for quite a few years. After John passed, we bought it from Pat and put it on a base and prettied it up, and I think with any luck it might start for us. Okay, all right, Jonathan, if you want to pull.
It has some lovely detail painting left on it.
Did you get the stuff with the dog bone on the other side?
Yeah.
Decompressor's on,
Okay.
gas is on.
Just waiting for Mom to finish her walker.
Okay, I think we're ready to go.
Alrighty then.
Okay, this is a bonus run for the Sad Iron 2020 engine show. Another New York State wannabe entry for the event. 1909 National Size M. Came out of a university in England. In really good condition. It was probably always over-oiled by the students and everything. It's never been outside, so it's got most of its original paint. A few of the readouts and instrumentation devices that were originally on it in the school survive. Many of them don't, but it's all original there with the gas bag muffler, air silencer, and it's mounted on the steel I-beam frame that was actually on at the university while it was installed. So it's all pre-oiled like the other engine. I'm going to turn the gas system on and then we'll try to start it up. This turns on the building fuel. And we turn on the fuel for the engine, which is on. And let's see what happens. This is Jonathan's favorite engine. It's a little lump. Just for you, Jonathan. Wish I could be up there with you guys.
This is our 65 horse Bruce Macbeth engine, affectionately known as Brucey. We got him in 1996 from the Bellevue Waterworks in Belleville, Ohio, where he ran the backup from the, we believe, early 30s until 1978, when he was replaced by an electric motor. He sat under a water tower for about 20 years, not quite 20 years, until we went down and got him. Phil Close helped us buy him on via a silent auction, and we're going to see if he wants to run for you now.
It's just Kathy and David from Ontario, and we just wanted to stop in and say that we hope that everybody's staying safe, and we hope we'll see you next year at the Trebners. So that's about it. Dave's got a little something to tell you about our engines.
Okay, the engine that we're going to be running for the virtual Sad Iron meet this year is a Deutz Auto E12, 8 horsepower. It's a 1904 design, built in 1912. And it's going to be belted to a Crocker Wheeler generator and a light post. And that's it.
So we can't be there with you in person, but we're here virtually, and we hope that, again, everybody stays safe, and we'll see you guys next year. See you later. Bye.
To the Woody segment of the Sad Iron Virtual Engine Show. Today we'll be starting up a 3 horsepower Stickney that used to belong to Sad Iron. The Stickney was used in a casket factory in Oil City, Ontario, Canada. It is does in fact have a Canadian tag on it, although it was made in St. Paul, Minnesota. And that concludes this segment of the Sad Iron Virtual Engine Show. Beauty, eh? Just like Stairway to Heaven.